All right, welcome. This is Dave Henning's Fresh Start Podcast, and I've got John Gallina, CEO of Purple Heart Homes, here on the line with me. John, good to see you, my friend.
Hey, it's great to be here with you and good to see you, Dave.
Well, I tell you what, I was looking back. This is it was 11 years ago that I went to an event in August of 2011, a reception because you and Dale had just made the cover of Time magazine, uh, the America's new generation of veterans. And the very next day, I canceled some guy, and I says, "Hey, you guys come on the podcast, the show at WSIC Statesville that day." So we go way back, and I was reminiscing on when I re-listened to the podcast just a few minutes ago that I saw a man named Paul J. Meyer at a convention in Las Vegas, really sharp businessman, and he said, "Never give mental recognition to the possibility of defeat." And that's what you guys did with Purple Heart Homes. You started from scratch. You had this dream of doing something special. You had a tragic experience, obviously, in Iraq and your time there serving our country as well. So, where should we begin? You've done a lot of really cool things since then. Let's talk about. I just saw you on Facebook. You over in Puerto Rico, and what was that about helping some veterans over there?
Well, Dave, I'll kind of connect the dots there from 2011 to Puerto Rico. When we came home from Iraq in 2008, the reception that we had from our community was just phenomenal, and we had so many people wanting to support us and what you might consider maybe a little more popular war. But when we looked around, we saw a lot of Vietnam veterans in particular that weren't getting served. And we said, how can we help those that served in the unpopular wars? How can we help those that served in the forgotten wars? And so we set out to develop a charity that had a level playing field for all veterans, no matter where they served, what years they served. For that matter, they don't even have to have served in combat, but we want to help veterans where they have a need. And so we even help Marines. That's my favorite thing is that we even help Marines. And so, we go in and wherever they are at, wherever they want to be, that's where we're going to go. And so there's a significant veteran population in Puerto Rico. And we said, hey, there's not a lot of charities down there helping veterans with their housing needs in Puerto Rico. And so we want to help them live out their dream in their community where they want to live.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I saw those pictures and I thought, I didn't think of that. I did not think of Puerto Rico. And there you are. You identified that need. And you also, this was very fascinating. I love following your page. You actually built a ramp recently for a 102-year-old World War II veteran. Wow, tell me about that.
Yeah, so we get calls all over the country. We've helped folks from Alaska to Hawaii, and now we're moving into Puerto Rico, all the lower 48. But basically, the way the community generally thinks about veterans is that the VA provides all the support and all the needs that veterans have. But when you think about the VA, they're a health organization. They're a hospital group. They're not a housing organization. And their ability to respond to the needs of veterans is somewhat time consuming. On average, it takes about 7 months to get a wheelchair ramp from the time you apply to the VA to the time you get the ramp installed. And so when you're 101 years old and you've just stopped driving and you've just stopped working and suddenly you find yourself in need of a wheelchair ramp, we have to ask, do you really have 7 months to wait? And that's where Purple Heart Homes and our community of volunteers and partners come in because we're able to turn around within 3 weeks and provide that wheelchair ramp, whether it's to a Korean War veteran in their late 80s and early 90s in Hawaii, or whether it's a 102-year-old veteran in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. We're there to respond and help them.
Initially, you were more regional previously when you started out. Is that right?
We were, we started in North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte, and our hometown of Statesville, North Carolina, and just a tremendous veteran population here. A county of about 200,000 people, and around 18,000 veterans live in our community. And so, a very patriotic area. And we said, hey, look, we want to help veterans here. But we soon started receiving phone calls from veterans in South Carolina and Georgia and Connecticut. And they said, we don't really have that type of organization and support there. Can y'all come help us too? And so we started organizing volunteers in various communities, creating chapters where volunteers can have access to our brand and our partners and our programs, and they can support veterans in their community and make sure that they're as patriotic and showing their love for the veterans the same way we do.
Now, you've probably been down more than once to that special Richard's coffee shop where he was honored years ago and passed away, but now it's like the hangout for veterans memorabilia. Some young and old guys who love their country, and you got some experiences there that you recall.
I'm going to tell you, Richard Warren was a salt of the earth veteran, just thought the world of Richard. Vietnam veteran, ultimately passed away from complications caused by Agent Orange. But Richard had a story, quite different than I had. When he come home as a Vietnam veteran, he was spit on and had tomatoes and eggs thrown at him, and he didn't feel welcomed. And he ultimately moved to Germany, where he lived for about 20 years. When his mom got sick back here in Mooresville, North Carolina, he decided to move back home to take care of her. Of course, at this point, the culture and temperature of how we treat our veterans, our service members, had changed significantly. He opened up a coffee shop that wound up, serving free coffee to veterans on Thursdays. And so, as the story goes, Richard started having veterans that would come in, and he'd give them free coffee, had them start signing into a book of honor, recognizing them. A young lady that worked there at the shop, Cheryl Ann, she would make them little beaded bracelets and just tell them that, hey, we love you, we thank you for your service, and you're welcome here anytime. Well, what started taking place was the veterans would all show up on Thursday after Thursday each week. And now it is known as the Living Museum Welcome Home Veterans. And they're somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 700 veterans on every Thursday gather together. They range from in their 90s to in their 20s, and they're just there to meet, fellowship. They have tell war stories, of course, but they do a lot of good. They fundraise and they get engaged in the community to make sure that people know about patriotism and people know about sacrifice that's been made by our servicemen and women. Great organization.
Just amazing. I used to stop there for my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Yeah. But they've expanded a little bit now. Now they're doing hot dogs and hamburgers and all kinds of other stuff. So,
oh man, I can't wait to get back there. Well, I have a very personal inside story. A very good friend of mine, Fred and Rosie Smith, down the street, they had a little Christian bookstore, and Fred was pastoring this little storefront church, and he blessed me with allowing me to speak to his little congregation there a time or two. But Fred's father was killed in Vietnam and never knew what happened. The government would not tell him. Maybe you know this story already. But what happened was Fred could not find out. And so Fred went into Richard's coffee shop, and on the wall was a picture of I think it was a Huey that Richard flew over in Vietnam. And Richard said, well, Fred mentioned him. I've never been able to find out. The government won't tell me. And Richard said, when was that? And Fred told him, he says, well, Fred, your father, it just so happened, was across the border in a different country where he was not supposed to be. And I'm the guy that flew the Huey over there to pick him up when his plane crashed. I mean, just telling that story now, just an amazing memory of who Richard was, what he was like, and the fact that they connected after years of Fred never knowing what happened to his dad. Just an amazing thing.
Yeah, I tell you, there's just so many great stories about people meeting and coming together, and whether it's civilians or whether it's veterans that served during the same time period, it's really a special place, and one that I hold dear to my heart. We were able to gather there just a few weeks ago, where we celebrated our 1,000th project and our mission complete there. And so it was great to celebrate with all those veterans. They've been great supporters over the years, and you just never know how the relationships are going to develop and where the needs going to be. But we make this commitment that we're not going to leave a fellow soldier or sailor or marine behind on the battlefield. And I feel like now my commitment is no less than it was when I wore the uniform. It's just a little different. We brought them home. Let's not leave them alone at home.
Right.
And I believe that commitment and supporting one another runs through the veins of every single veteran that walks into Richard's Coffee Shop, and all the volunteers the same. That they just want to care about and love on the veterans that are here with us today.
That is so awesome. I don't know if you had a chance to ever meet Senator Bob Dole when he stopped by,
Yeah.
but his wife Elizabeth Dole was North Carolina, and I got to meet Bob Dole almost by accident. I was going to graduate school in Kansas City, and I got my first radio job there. And one of my clients selling radio advertising he was the Kansas, he was the let me think now. He worked at a major bank that was one of my advertising clients. I was at a Kansas City Royals baseball game, and he happened to be the campaign manager for Bob Dole in Kansas. And I see him in the stands. I go up to shake his hand, and sitting next to him was Bob Dole. He introduced me, and of course I had to shake hands with him with my left hand, because he always held that pen in his right hand from his disability from being in the war. But
Yeah.
what an honor to meet such a gentleman and an amazing person who loved our country and did everything he could. In fact, I think there's a friend of mine right there in Mooresville who was working for the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, that he got to shake hands with Bob Dole years later when Bob was confined to his wheelchair. But did you get a chance to meet Bob at all, or no?
I have. In fact, Elizabeth Dole's foundation supports us, and we've done a lot of work with them over the years. And just really great people. They're the epitome of the American spirit, and just persevering and fighting for benefits and freedoms for other people, and just think the world of the entire family. Yeah.
So tell us what some of the other things you're involved with now. You said you've kind of transitioned over the years, and you're the head spokesperson, I guess, for the whole thing. And of course, we lost Dale unexpectedly some years back and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, so really, the organization's grown significantly over the course of the last 11 years. We've had number of great successes. We've built some transitional houses to help homeless veterans. We now manufacture tiny homes, and so we're
Wow.
doing more and more of that kind of work. Really trying to engage communities to help teach them how to be able to support housing insecurities. A lot of folks think about, veterans in the sense of, homeless veterans and how they can help homeless veterans. And there's a lot of great charities out there that are doing that work. But I really more often think about how do we help keep veterans in their homes, not just so that they don't end up on the street, but so that they don't end up in nursing care facilities. Little things that we can do, providing wheelchair ramps, uh, accessible showers and bathrooms, widening doors, getting rid of carpet, and helping replace roofs and providing for a safe home that doesn't have mold in it because you have a leaky roof. And so there's all sorts of needs out there, and just being able to help educate communities as to how they can do their part. But beyond that, it's really it's about partnering. It's about helping other charities work to their strengths, realizing that we don't have to be competitive. It's not about who gets the most money. It's not about who gets the money. It's about how can we work together to make our communities a better place. At the end of the day, the charities are my neighbors, just like the veterans we serve. And when we can work with them, whether it's a church, whether it's another housing charity, whether it's a food bank, whatever it is, when we can work together and we can work to our strengths, then we're going to be able to do more. And that's really the end goal. The end goal is not how much money we collect. The end goal is how many people can we help.
That is awesome. I hadn't thought of that. Tiny homes. That's been quite a revelation how that has developed over time, especially with these new printing machines that can actually print a
Yeah.
house made in cement. And but so how does that work? You can get these tiny homes quite reasonable, and they're pretty decent places, and then you've got to find the land and all that kind of stuff. How does that work?
So depending on what the need is and who the potential client might be, whether it's a veteran or whether it's a partnering organization helping support homelessness or helping be able to do transitional housing, really ultimately determines how we work with them. But we work with foundations to be able to provide the support. We work with municipal partners to provide land. We work with banks that provide real estate assets as well that we can put the properties, the houses onto. And veterans are building these in our manufacturing facility. We turn around and they're roughly 320 to 420 square feet, one bedroom, one bath, fully outfitted with appliances, washer, dryer, refrigerator, microwave, stove, and they have a handicap accessible shower in most cases. And we set them up so that if it's a veteran, depending on their finances, we're making them affordable through our housing model. We believe in a hand up, not a handout. We want people to have pride in ownership. And when you just simply gift somebody a house, then you're essentially telling them that you're never going to be capable of owning a house like everybody else. So we're just going to give it to you for free. And I think that strips some of the pride of service away from our veterans.
Right.
I'll share a quick story with you, Dave. We had a veteran about 8 years ago. His name was Jimmy Lee. And Jimmy came to us. He was living in a 14-foot camper in Osawatomie, Kansas. And Jimmy, his wife called and said, "Hey, we need some help. We were evicted from our home. The city condemned our home and then they tore it down. We only had enough money to buy this travel trailer and we really need a safe house. And, can you help us?" And so I said, "Well, we've got a property in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and we'd be happy to assist you with that. Basically, we're going to set you up with a mortgage for 50% of the value, and the other 50% of the value will gift to you as you live in the house for 5 years, pay your first mortgage, pay your insurance. We'll give you, a piece of that every year until you own the whole thing free and clear." And so we sat down at the closing table after we remodeled the house and made it accessible for Jimmy and his wife's needs. And we sat down at the closing table, and the lawyer brings in this, monumental stack of paperwork and doing the deed and the mortgage and all that stuff. And tears just started streaming down Jimmy's cheeks. And I looked at the lawyer. I said, "Sir, can you just wait 1 minute?" I said, "Jimmy," I said, "we can talk about this some more." I said, "If you're not comfortable, we'll work something out. I just want to help you." Jimmy was a Vietnam veteran and certainly close to my heart. And, it's the epitome of who I wanted to help and who we organized our charity to serve. And Jimmy said, "No, John." He said, "It's okay." He said, I just never thought anybody would find me worthy to give me a mortgage."
Hmm.
And Dave, it just broke my heart to think that we get our self-worth based on our credit worthiness and whether or not a bank will give us credit. And so our program is structured to be able to lift veterans up, to be able to help them help themselves, and allow us to come alongside of them and support them so that they can achieve the American dream, that they can have a safe, accessible home to raise their family in peace. And I think that's what everybody wants. Nobody is out there saying, "Just give me, give me, give me."
Right.
But I think there's a lot of people out there just saying, I could just use a little bit of help.
Yep.
And that's what our charity tries to do. We try and provide that little bit of support. Now, I just want to make sure that I'm being clear with all the listeners out there. If a veteran needs a wheelchair ramp, it's just 100% gift. There's no cost for that. We're just going to go provide a wheelchair ramp. We have sponsors that's what they pay for, and we're just providing wheelchair ramps. If they need their roof replaced, the same thing. We're just out there to support the veteran community to make sure that they have the needs and support and opportunity that they deserve. And if folks are curious about our requirements and as to how they can qualify for our services, you can find that information on our website at purplehearthomesusa.org. And I would encourage them to check it out. You have to be a service connected disabled veteran. There's an application process, and if folks are interested in supporting, volunteering, contributing, they're welcome. We would love to help them engage and create a chapter in their community, and they can find that information out on our website as well.
That's fantastic. There's probably dozens and dozens of stories from people that you've talked to and people you've helped, and it's just so heartwarming. Tell me about this Lifetime Home Makeover TV show that you are on. That was so interesting because I of course I watch Chip and Joanna Gaines and all those kinds of construction shows.
Well, we've been blessed over the years to have many different partnership opportunities. Lifetime Home Makeover approached us about 6 months ago, said, hey, there's a project that we're working on for a Purple Heart recipient down in Rock Hill, South Carolina. We'd love for y'all to be able to support and help us out with that. And so we, of course, jumped right in with both feet with our partners at Lowe's Home Improvement. And we were able to support that project. It's just great coming alongside of so many great partners within a community to make a difference. When we all chip in, it lightens the load for everybody and makes a life-changing opportunity for an entire family. And we oftentimes don't think about the kids and the spouses and how their lives are impacted and changed when we can come in and improve a home and improve the quality of life for the veteran. It ripples through the entire community. It ripples through the entire family, and in some cases, it's making a generational difference. It's changing the lives of the next generation, and you can never underestimate the power of volunteering and helping somebody else.
It's you're blessed as much or more than the person you're blessing, as it turns
It
out.
it is, and I'll share another quick story. A gentleman he's a Vietnam vet as well. He's become a very dear friend, and his name is Bruce. And I met Bruce in Connecticut about 8 years ago, and we were working on a project, and we had a Heart 911 organization, another volunteer group was out framing a house, and we agreed to provide lunch for all the volunteers. There was about 150 volunteers that were out on this project, and so we had this big lunch after we finished framing the house. And Bruce come up to me afterwards, and as we were winding up the lunch, and he said, "John, I'd like to say a few words to everybody." And I said, "Well, sure. Bruce." I gave him the microphone. I looked over at my table and where I was sitting and all the folks that I was with, and they were shaking their head, telling me, "No, don't let nobody else speak. We got to wrap this up." And I'm like, "Hey, look, he's a Vietnam vet. He can speak and tell us as much as he wants. I want to hear it." But what Bruce said had the entire room in tears. And I'm talking about, 200-pound grown men that are firefighters at the top of their game in New York City. They were the best of the best. And these men were just in tears. Bruce said, I served in Vietnam. I was stabbed. I was left for dead. I crawled back to my base. I come home. I was spit on. I was turned away. I was shunned. And every day for over 45 years after work, I've went home and in the woods, I've picked up sticks and I've just beat on trees until I couldn't lift my arms and my hands would bleed just trying to let out the anger. He said the way that we were welcomed home as Vietnam vets was horrible. He said, but today, seeing how the volunteers here today have helped this young Marine has changed my life and allowed me to let go of all the anger to know that we're not the same America that we were when I come home from Vietnam. And so even the volunteers get this benefit and get to see and witness and be a part of this healing. It's not just healing for the veteran, it's healing for everybody that's involved. Everybody gets some benefit out of it. And it's just in my life and my experience, it's the greatest thing that I could ever have dreamed to have been a part of, to get to see people love each other, be healed, and be able to have a brighter future because we're treating our neighbors correctly.
That is so awesome, John. And thank you for sharing that story. You may not remember this, but in 2015, I decided to take a book writing course. I ended up writing a book about the power of encouragement by this guy, old Barney, I call him,
I have my copy.
old
Yep.
Barnabas in the Bible, and it was all about the power of encouragement. And that's, your organization is all about the power of encouragement, and it's a gift from God if you allow that gift to work inside of us every day. But to my shock and surprise, it actually hit #1 bestseller on Amazon for a time period. But all that to say, I hope that book has touched somebody's heart and mind as to all the different ways that we can encourage people, that just people that we run into. You go in the grocery store, and the cashier is looking down and scanning stuff, and just all day long her feet hurt, is ready to go home, and I like to look at their name tag and just call them by name and wish them a good day, and they'll look up and their face just lights up because somebody recognized them as a human being. So same thing with this organization that I'm working with out in San Jose, California. It's actually a organization for disabled adults who have aged out of a program called Young Life for disabled teenagers. And I just, you probably remember, may don't remember, that I had a son that had cerebral palsy, and but all that to say, there's always somebody that we can impact their life just by being there and being available. Tell me this, because I really want to know. I feel like you've expressed that in some of the things you've said. Is tell me how you're a person of faith. Tell me how that has impacted your life, especially with all that you're doing now for so many people.
I got to say, Dave, God has been so good to me. I'm just so very thankful and blessed. I'm married and 3 kids, and everybody's healthy. And I went to Iraq and just really had a loss of direction, and in some ways, you might say, was angry and just didn't really know what to do. And I look back, and in some way, getting blown up was one of the best things that could ever happen. It helped
Wow.
me open my eyes to how people love and what God's love can really do to change a life for the better. And I try and use every day now to do the same for other people. That I realize that every day is a opportunity to give back, an opportunity to spread God's love, and an opportunity to do something good for his kingdom. And so just how we can do that for others, and how we can excuse me, pay that forward in a manner that allows people to live a life that what they were intended and made to live. Right? We weren't intended to be miserable. No, I don't believe for 1 minute that God made us so that we would be miserable and hateful and angry. But He has so much more planned for us. But we have to open ourselves up to that. I believe you have to make yourself vulnerable. You have to make yourself available, and that you have to have your eyes wide open so that you can see other people and you can witness what other people are doing, and we can emulate the goodness around us. And your book, Barnabas Leader, is on my bookshelf right across from me. I could put my hand on it right now. Great example of a little bit of word and encouragement, an example of a life well lived that I try and apply every day. And I'm just grateful for that. And I'm grateful for folks like yourself that have invested into me and to my success. It's not something that was done on my own. I'm not different or unique in that manner, but it's just been good people that have come alongside and said, hey, look, you can do something good. You can make a difference, and here's how we'd like to support you to do just that. And so certainly, I've been very blessed.
And I don't want to get too graphic, but just so people are clear, when you said you had a little accident, basically your Humvee was blown about 200 feet in the air, and of course Dale, lost both of his legs, but he did come home and still remain a positive, encouraging drummer for his band.
Yep.
And you had some physical challenges as well, but it's very interesting that you should say that getting blown up was the best thing that ever happened to you, because out of which here we are today. Let's not wait another 11 years to talk, John. We got to get back together every so often, right?
Would love that. Would love that.
So I think we've covered everything except that did you take your whole staff to this Bob Woodruff Foundation concert with Darius Rucker?
So there was an event that was held here in Charlotte. Darius Rucker and a number of others, Sinbad and some other folks came in for this event, and it was hosted by the Bob Woodruff Foundation and a group called Hood Hargett Breakfast Club in Charlotte, North Carolina. And so a number of charities that serve veterans had the opportunity to participate in the event and go to a private concert that Darius Rucker had put on. And interestingly enough, Jen, the lady at Hood Hargett, wound up marrying the lead guitarist from Darius's band. And I was like, hey, that's a pretty good deal, But yeah, and so it's remained a really tight knit community, and they're just great people who have a heart and passion for serving the community and serving veterans, and so it was really a great experience.
I mentioned that I was blessed to see him out in California with Hootie and the Blowfish, but he's got such an incredible voice, and I love the songs that he sings are very spiritual. A lot of them. He's a good man and he's doing a good work with you guys. So we're gonna wrap things up here. And so thank you so much for being with me, John Gallina. You are the CEO of Purple Heart Homes. And let's see, I can also switch over to this right here. They can also get to your website, phhusa.org. Is that correct?
You got it. That's
okay,
it.
Cool. Everybody listening and watching today, we want you to get out there and go on the website. Look through it, see what's happening. You may want to, if you're in the area or available, you may want to volunteer. You may want to donate a little something. You may want to
start a chapter.
Oh, there you go. And how does that work real quick, John? Just tell it anywhere in the country.
Anywhere in the country, any community, just reach out and say, hey, we need help here in our community to support our veterans. And I'd like to be a part of that. You don't have to have any special talent. We've got a roadmap that'll help you be able to get there. We've got a great support team that will come alongside of you and support you. We got phenomenal national partners that'll help fund some of your projects, and we'll help lead you down the path so that you can be successful helping veterans in your community.
You're listening to John Gallina, CEO of PurpleHeartHomesUSA.org. John, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Dave.
Hold on, John.